Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be here amongst so many distinguished speakers. 9/11 changed everything for American Muslims, and this generation of young Muslims has grown up in the shadow of the Twin Towers. As we watched the World Trade Center crumble, our world also slowly began to collapse, as Muslims everywhere were regarded with suspicion due to the deplorable actions of a few. The American reaction was angry and quick, and the war on terror initially felt like a war on Islam. The passage of the Patriot Act and racial profiling at airports were symptomatic of a saddening Islamophobia that gripped the entire nation. My friends and I joked about the perils of flying while brown, but underneath our humor was real hurt. Growing up in these troubled times has profoundly affected the experience of being a Muslim American. Growing up in this 9/11 world poses a unique set of challenges for American Muslim teens. The common teenage search for self is always a difficult and confusing path, and some teens feel torn between their Muslim and their American identities. On September 10th, I went to bed an American, and on September 11th, I woke up a Muslim. At school the next day, I felt a confusing mixture of guilt and shame, even though the destruction of the Twin Towers had absolutely nothing to do with me. And as an American, I also mourned for the dead and wounded. New York is my city too, as my parents first met there as bankers 22 years ago, steps away from the World Trade Center. Ignorance and misconceptions about Islam can be difficult to deal with at times, and kids can be cruel. I'll mention a personal example. When my younger brother was only in 4th grade, he became the victim of playground prejudice when some kids claimed that he was a member of the Taliban and excluded them from their soccer game. And I don't think they even knew what the Taliban was at that time. Much later, when I was in high school, I was startled when an English teacher of mine declared that the Quran sanctions the oppression of women, even though Islam is a religion of equality which has always protected women's rights. Pakistan, a Muslim country, has even had a woman prime minister, though the United States has yet to elect a female president. Though these incidents were deeply upsetting, we came to understand that they were rooted in ignorance, not hate. What is the reason for these blatant misconceptions and untruths about Islam? As my brother has said before, on 9/11, Osama bin Laden did not just hijack those planes, he hijacked my religion. Sometimes the loudest voices in the room are the only ones that are heard, and violent acts that abuse the name of Islam simply shout above the hum of moderate opinions. The media is also responsible for this in many ways, as it focuses on the phenomenon of Muslim radicalization and ignores the many Muslims who are working for peace and justice. When a Muslim commits a crime, his religion is almost always mentioned, even when it's completely irrelevant to the act, and thus Islam is subtly cast as responsible. As a result, many Muslims have come under suspicion for acts of violence that have absolutely nothing to do with. Whenever awful things happen here, one of my first reactions is always to think, I really hope a Muslim wasn't responsible. For teenagers, this is devastating. Many feel isolated and ostracized in ways that they cannot avoid. Some react by trying to distance themselves from their Muslim heritage, while others embrace Islam, while some Abduls become Als. Other young Muslims completely immerse themselves in Islam, voluntarily isolating themselves, and effectively saying to mainstream American society, if you're going to reject me, then I'm going to reject you. The perceived culture clash between Islam and America can be another source of anxiety for Muslim youth. However, I believe that this conflict does not in fact exist. Samuel Huntington's Clash of Civilizations theory suggests that the main lines of conflict after the Cold War will be drawn amongst religio-cultural borders. But this theory completely ignores the common heritage shared by the Abrahamic faiths of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and is blind to the overlap between the civilizations he mentions. It is entirely possible to be a loyal American and a good Muslim simultaneously. Culture and religion are not the same concept. There are Muslims from an incredibly diverse array of cultures, all practicing the same religion. Though the challenges of identity and discrimination can be difficult, young American Muslims also have access to an absolutely incredible array of opportunities. Most immigrants come to America because of the chances for a happy and successful life, and their children reap the benefits. As Americans, we were privileged with access to great education, and regardless of one's background, it is possible to succeed in any area. The idea of the American dream still exists, and it's up to us to make it real. Because of these chances, American Muslims can confront the challenges they face with various solutions. We can turn our obstacles into our opportunities. Though American Muslims have sometimes suffered under the harsh spotlight thrown on us on 9/11, we must rise to the occasion and take the stage to spread a message of tolerance and peace that is representative of true Islam. American Muslims can take advantage of the attention that they are now receiving by using it as an opportunity to demonstrate their diversity and their vibrancy as a community. It is crucial for American Muslims to become active in their communities on a local, national, and international level. By being engaged and integrated in our cultural and religious communities, we can effect positive change as new leaders. Because America is a nation of immigrants, we have the unique opportunity to carve out our own niche within America's existing cultural community. And the ways in which Muslim teens can be heard are endless. By going into fields such as the media, the law, politics, and federal service, Muslims can express opinions in ways that can actually change the status quo. There are creative ways in which one can work to better the position of American Muslims. After 9/11, I personally wondered what I could do to make it clear that young Muslims do not support extremism and are simply teenagers that have so much in common with others of different faiths. I was more and more concerned that the Islam that I saw on TV, especially Fox News, had almost no resemblance to the Islam that I believed in. And around the country, people asked, where are the moderate Muslims? And they've always been there, but their voices are not always heard. And as I love to read, I took action with a book. I co-wrote the American Muslim Teenager's Handbook with my mother and younger brother from 2000 and 2003, 2003 to 2007, in an effort to describe the American Muslim experience. It is a guidebook to modern Islam, modern moderate Islam that does not proselytize or judge, but seeks to serve as a way to facilitate discussion about important issues. It covers topics that are relevant to all teenagers, such as peer pressure, drinking, dating, drugs, as well as a post-9/11 survival guide to counter ignorance surrounding Muslims. After self-publishing the book in 2007, we promoted it with countless interviews and public speaking events. We were featured on media outlets such as the New York Times, NPR, and a publication put out by the Department of State. Though our target audience was Muslim families, non-Muslims started buying it as well, as a good introduction to Islam. Eventually, the mainstream world of publishing realized the importance of the American Muslim market, and the publishing company of Simon & Schuster bought it, issuing a new edition in 2009. It's now available in libraries, bookstores, and universities around the world, and has been translated into several languages, including French, Dutch, and Chinese. Through this experience, I have realized how powerful the written word can be. Our jihad for understanding and tolerance is conducted with the pen, not the sword. Any Muslim can make a change as long as he or she is willing to try, and indeed, it is our responsibility to try. We can't let extremists define our religion for us. There are plenty of American Muslim role models who are living examples of the ways in which it's possible to be an engaged American citizen and a devoted Muslim. I am fortunate to be in the company of many of these individuals around me right now. This summer, I have the privilege of serving as an intern to one such Muslim American changemaker, Farah Pandith. She was appointed in June 2009 as the special representative to Muslim communities by Secretary of State Clinton. Her story might sound familiar to many of us. She emigrated to the United States from Kashmir at the age of 2, growing up in Massachusetts and attending Smith College, eventually becoming the student body president. Now, as the special representative to Muslim communities, Special Representative Pandith travels to Muslim communities around the world, seeking to connect networks of like-minded Muslims on a global scale. She tirelessly works on behalf of all Muslims and all Americans, engaging in people-to-people diplomacy, which focuses on our similarities rather than our differences. And education is one of our biggest assets as American Muslims. It is incredibly important to take advantage of our educational opportunities in order to fully participate in discussion on a global level. American Muslims should also make it a priority to educate themselves about Islam and speak out against extremist ideologies, expressing their disagreement with radical groups that twist the words of the Holy Quran in order to support acts of violence. One must take responsibility for one's own Islamic education, reading the Quran rather than blindly accepting someone else's words. Islam is a rational religion which emphasizes critical thinking and using our God-given minds. We must not let others speak or think for each other. And as American Muslims, we shouldn't forget that we are part of a large American community of faith. Interfaith activism is a great way to share Islamic traditions while also gaining